welcome back to another special episode of the Epic Experiment Podcast. It's episode 164. I'm your host, Bruce, and I'm joined online once again by...
Your good friend, Pete. Hey, guys. What's up, everybody? I know. I want to do that for a dramatic effect, brother.
Super slick, man. Well done.
This is the Epic Experiment Podcast. We're full of drama, intrigue, mystery, murder, everything. All right, except the latter.
Or just some awkwardness. That's okay.
Well, again, if you guys want to find us, we are on thelotuscouncil.com, and we're on various Discord servers. Winter is upon us, and winter is upon us today. So our good friend from Stupid Decks That Works is here with us. How are you doing today, Winter?
I'm doing great. I'm glad it is the weekend, and I'm looking forward to sharing some spicy deck techs with you all. Cool. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome.
How did we meet you, by the way? How did you learn to torture us recently with your spice?
Yeah. So, like you said, we met through the Stupid Decks That Work site. I've been there for less time than Fuji has, because that was the last individual y'all had on here. But I don't know. I just that's sort of how we met, and we've been playing ever since you joined a couple of months ago, I think, or I guess more than a couple of months ago. But yeah, so that's how we met. Yeah.
And I dragged Bruce in eventually. I was like, "Hey, man, you should play with me again on Discord because I miss playing with you."
Well, it's true, and the people over the Stupid Decks at Work have been good fun to play with. I've played a couple of games with Fuji. I have played a game with Winter before, only the one occasion, but it was good, and a few other of the individuals over there. And it was a breath of fresh air from the usual meta that and people that I play with. And while I love some of my friends that I play with on a regular basis, it's fun to mix it up and put some new people on the table and see what we got. And I always find it a very interesting process to see what everyone else has brought to the table and see people's different creative thought processes to get stuff, because you get used to the way certain people build decks, and you meet new people and you get new ideas.
I'm very appreciative of just the diversity of the cards that we see every time we sit together. If it's with our friend here, Winter, or like Fuji or anybody else, everyone seems to want to try something weird and interesting and something you don't see every day. So one of the big things we wanted to bring you on was because you've had some very unique styles, some very unique decks I never seen before up until this point. So, and I've been playing for a while. Bruce has been playing for a while too. So always good to have you on. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, I try my best with making decks that sort of. I'm a deckaholic. I'll say that. I think I currently have like 30 plus decks sleeved up right now. And they are.
I feel that.
Yeah, they're always being shuffled out. I'm currently working on Dina Soul Steeper with a what is it? The combo is Scouting Trek and Cultivator Colossus. So Scouting Trek puts it shuffles your library, and then you can put any number of basic land cards from your deck on top of your library. And then you play Cultivator Colossus, and you draw every single land. And so, accompanied with Jadi Offshoot, Druid Class, Kazandu Nectar Pot, every single land also gains you life, which Dina Soul Steeper likes to ping people with. So I'm currently brewing that deck. I'm working on one with
I'm sitting here speechless because that's so just like
crazy unique.
Wow,
smart. That's smart.
Yeah. So I've got a lot of ideas. My entire desk is covered in boxes full of like half-built decks. That's kind of the personality for me, is I start something and then don't finish it quite often. So oftentimes those decks just get reorganized back. So I'm glad to share all of those cool deck techs. And yeah, I'm just once again happy to be here.
You and I have a lot in common that way, because like I look around my office and my bedroom and anywhere else that I can store cards, and there's like half constructed decks standing everywhere. And I'm like, oh, I should get around to finishing that deck over there, or oh, that one over there, I should do that one next, or oh dear, I'm
the odd man out. I'm the odd man out because I am
loser. are.
Hey, well, listen.
Absolutely.
I am. Yeah, no, but my organization, like for my stuff, it's like all color coded and like it's by mana cost and very like super anal about that stuff because I want to be able to find things, I guess.
Well, I can find stuff, but you like the commons probably squished between
the
like
$50 cards, my guy.
Yeah.
Brutal.
anyway.
Yeah,
All right.
Gosh. Yeah.
Oh, geez. Well, we'll get into that, I'm sure, as we go through the show, and Winter highlights some of his treats that he's got on the brew as we go around as we go. As always, audience, if you want to get a hold of us for whatever reason, you like what you hear tonight, you want to find more of our other shows in the backlog or anything else, you can always reach out to us on social media. All the information to reach out to us is in the show notes. You can find us on all the social medias; they're all there. We're gonna move on to some garbage or great.
Say that in French, what will you?
Des déchets ou c'est super?
Oh, very good.
Bye.
Yeah, it's a rough approximation. It wouldn't be quite how I phrase it normally, but it'll work. For today, it'll work. So the nice part about having our guests on is we let them sort of like show us what they think about. So Winter has been very gracious to grant us some garbage or great cards for us to mull over. So what did you bring tonight there, Winter?
Let's go.
All right. So I'll start with a card called Aligned Hedron Network. This card is 4 generic mana. It is an artifact, and it says when Aligned Hedron Network enters the battlefield, exile all creatures with power 5 or greater until Aligned Hedron Network leaves the battlefield. So it's a mass O-ring for every single 5 or more power creature. I run this in a majority of my decks. You will find that I am not to be controversial, I am a Simic player. I play Simic colors quite often, and even if the deck doesn't have green or blue in it, somehow my deck is still Simic. And so I like to run a lot of engines with very little win con potential. I'm that player. And so this card often helps me stabilize boards. I find that at least in our meta on the server, there are a lot of big creatures running around, and my creatures are often smaller, and it ends up being a one-sided board wipe almost like 90% of the time. So, yeah, I would say great.
Bruce, you want to go first, or we should go alphabetical, or age before beauty? What do you want to do here?
Well, I mean, I'm clearly both age and beauty, so I don't know what you're talking about. So, I look at this one, and this is a card that I've been playing since Avacyn Restored. So I remember this card, quite distinctly when it came out, and I have always eschewed putting it in my decks. Mostly because I am the guy who plays the big stompy creatures. I would be the guy to say no, thank you. I will pass because all my big scary counters with creatures with counters or creatures with like Optimus Prime disappears or Megatron or all those guys all go bye-bye, and I get very sad. So I'm going to say from my perspective that this is garbage because this is how I wreck myself. So I'm going to have to say I pass.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Anyway, I think the most crazy way you could break this card is you play that new Galta and you play all the big creatures and then you purposefully exile all of them, sacrifice the artifact, and bring everything back. So that's just the way I think about this stupid card.
Well, I had started to go down the path of but what if I want to re-trigger all their ETBs?
Yeah.
And then you have put a Panharmonicon on the battlefield, and you put an Elesh Norn, and you put, oh no, and now you've made a monstrous thing. So you could go and do some really busted things if you wanted to get into that game. I'm still of the opinion that if that's what you're wanting to do, you can do something better than Hedron
Living
Archive.
Death. Living Death.
Yeah.
My pet card.
Yeah.
Mm.
Or just find ways to blink everything with a displacer kitten or something like that. So
Yeah.
but you could do that if you really wanted to as a redundant way to trigger a lot of ETBs. I get it. It's good fun, and everyone have a big giggle if you bargain this away to some stupid effect on from Wilds of Eldraine for giggles. But I
The
would
other
say
thing
generally, I'm not going to run it.
is
So
you could play this, be that guy, you could or gal, or anything else. You could play the
be that
archive.
toaster.
You could be that toaster. You could bring the heat. You could play it. They remove it, and you flash in like Containment Priest, so then no one gets their stuff back. That would also be cool.
Oh yes, you're now thinking. See, this is why we call Pete our dirtbag. Pete is our dirtbag doing
See,
dirtbaggy things. Like Winter wants to play it because he wants to get
He just wants
under
to
it.
stabilize. He just
Well, he
wants
wants
to
to
survive.
he wants
Yeah.
to get under
Or
it.
they want to just survive.
I want to avoid it because I'm going to get wrecked. And Pete's like, no. That's not what we're doing. We're going to do bad things with this now. So
I'm a terrible person. It's fine.
yeah, it's true. He's our dirtbag.
Yeah. I also find that even if it gets removed the turn after or something, oftentimes it stops me from being attacked through one turn cycle. And often that's enough for some of my decks to sort of like stabilize. Sometimes it's just an Aetherize. Sometimes it's just like it ain't no settled wreckage, but it's definitely something that I found has helped me through. Are we good to move on to the next one? I think.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I think we've exhausted all options. Sure.
Okay, so the next one I've chosen is Wedding Invitation. This one's a new-ish card. It's from Crimson Vow. It is a 2 mana or 2 generic for an artifact. When Wedding Invitation enters the battlefield, draw a card. Tap and sacrifice Wedding Invitation. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. If it's a vampire, it also gains lifelink until end of turn. The reason I have this one on the list is, it's it replaces itself, so it's a cantrip. Artifact, Sack, recursion themes, love it. I have it in a lot of just those decks to sort of, once again, be that cantrip effect and get a enter the battlefield and leave the battlefield effect. It always gets a creature through, and if you have a vampire, it heals a lot. I've had a lot of vampires hit. Most of those vampires are changelings, however. I do have a couple of Simic Changeling decks that run around Gladewalker or I have one that runs around Gladewalker Ritualist, which is a 3-drop that draws cards whenever another creature named Gladewalker Ritualist enters the battlefield.
Seen that
so
one.
yeah. So I have it in there.
All right.
I also have it in a bunch of decks that sort of change creatures into other types. So oftentimes this gets through my Voltron commander the one time it needs to get through, or it lets me hit when I need an attack trigger. I just find that since it replaces itself, I oftentimes will play a lot of 2 mana, just like draw a card, do something else. And so this card just fits really well into a lot of the strategies I pull off. So
yeah. I let's look at this. What I like about it, I think I really do appreciate this card and why I can see why you would play it and why I probably should be played in some more decks, and I'm probably guilty of not running it too. That ability to get it to get an attacker through is really, really important, and the fact that you don't have to spend mana to activate it is really, really what's key here. Because like a Rogue's Passage or a access tunnel or something like that is going to cost you some mana. And you may not want to spend your mana on that. You can just, when it's time to go, you tap it, sack it, do the thing, and you're going to get your thing through, which is super duper awesome. And then you can do all sorts of loopy things with like scrap trawlers and whatever else. So I think this is pretty great. It's a little low-key budgety thing that I like, and probably am guilty of not sort of respecting this sort of effect more often than not.
So to play devil's advocate, I would never play this card. I think it's garbage. Just because of the fact that if I was going to do something to make something unblockable, I would play a global effect in blue if I was in Simic. There's the one blue creature, Merfolk, that gives everything unblockable if it's blue. I'd also play Key to the City instead, just strictly straight up because of the fact that you can repeat this effect, where the two mana rock here, in this case, it's not a rock, but the 2 mana stone, I guess, it's like almost a one-time deal unless you can recur it or something, or you're just trying to win the game on the spot. That's just my opinion. Again, I just don't see the value unless you're doing something like kind of out of the box. So that's just me. Take it as you will. But.
Yeah. No, I completely get that. I often get the lifelink off of this thing. That's more what I'm looking at it for. Is I play a lot of decks that don't have a lot of life gain in them, and so just having something that gets something through, and also, like I said, changelings. Those changelings get big sometimes when I've got some effects that sort of change that. I think Banner of Command. No, that's probably not the name of it. It's like the AoE sort of thing that's like for every creature of that same type you have, every other creature gets that big. I have that in that changeling deck, and so sometimes I just hit someone with an unblockable 15/15, heal myself up, and it's a 30-point life swing. And there's probably other cards that do that same thing in green and blue. This is just sort of like the budget card that I have access to. So
yeah, it makes sense.
I get the point. Yeah.
How much life do you think you gain on average, though? Like, would it be 5? Like, what's the threshold?
Like 5 or something.
Sure.
This is often, I find that like with cards like Rogue Passage, I don't know if this is the thing that you feel as well, is oftentimes I use Rogue Passage maybe once in a game.
I don't
find that
I've actually gone to cutting it, so because I don't want to spend the 4 mana to activate it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So like, this doesn't make me spend mana for it, and I like that part. And so that I would actually might be more inclined if I put Dagatar on the battlefield and put a bunch of +1/+1 counters on it, and I want to punch him through because it's oftentimes this Dagatar. I'm just thinking Dagatar on the top of my head because that's where I probably have the biggest problems in terms of fighting my way through a board state, because most of my +1/+1 counter deck is all on the ground. So this would be great. Doesn't cost me mana, draws me a card, does lots of things I wanted to do, and if I want it back, I probably got to wait. I can recur it. So pretty down for it, and so I get it, Pete. I understand it's pretty low impact.
These sorts of flex slots, right? These sorts of things. It depends on what you're trying to do, right? Like all the decks I care about going to combat with, I usually have I would say a better option for that particular deck. But if it works for you, it works for you. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say don't play the card. I just say, in my personal opinion, and I'm only one of many, that the card is trash.
Yeah. So, okay, that's 1 and 1, 50% still.
There you go. Flip
it's a pass
coin
somewhere.
What is this card?
So this is Wondrous. This is a card from Brothers War. It is Wondrous Crucible. I run this in exactly one deck, but I'll go over what it does first. So it is a 7 mana artifact. I just realized I've given all colorless. It's just all artifacts. This is 7 generic mana for an artifact that says permanents you control have Ward 2. At the beginning of your end step, mill 2 cards. Then exile a non-land card at random from your graveyard. Copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. This card has won me many a game. I have it, like I said, in one deck. It is my Prismatic Piper mono green deck. So it's just Prismatic Piper as the commander. It is an amazing deck that honestly has a very high win percentage. I think I've played a total of 10 games with it, and I think I've won 6 out of those 10 so far. So 60% is pretty good for a commander thing. So it is expensive. I am running mono green though, so a lot of the deck is built around sort of ramping. It protects every permanent, so even itself, so everything is Ward 2. And it's just free value. I've found that oftentimes people don't want to spend the extra mana, and once it gets off like 1 or 2 end steps, like it's already paid for itself. Sometimes it's just to cultivate. It sometimes hits something like not so great sometimes, but usually the other night I actually had Azuri's Predation prior in the game, swung on Fuji actually, who ink shielded my Azuri's Predation attack.
Ooh.
He made 80 Inklings, and then I proceeded to Wondrous Crucible into the Azuri's Predation with a token doubler on the board, and I got about there were a lot. There were a lot of 4/4s. And then I won that game off of that. So This card is incredible. The success does vary, but oftentimes I find that the card you're hitting is either you're ramping a couple of lands or you're hitting something nuts and suddenly you have a token version of a creature that took everybody 2 turns to remove. But like I said, it is quite expensive. So like the first initial payment is a bit, but it happens at end step. So you get it the first turn you play it. So
yeah. Oh yes, that's true. This slaps. I'm in. I'm sold. I didn't even know this card existed. I like this. I'm putting this in Megatron, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. I'm going to make Megatron have Ward 2, and then I'm going to, when I've done flinging giant things at my opponents, I'm going to get it back, and I'm going to giggle hysterically.
So, I saw this card once when the precon came out, the Mishra's precon, with Brothers War. People were playing this card, and I'm like, huh, okay. Then I never saw it again, right? After people got their kick and their fix of that Commander precon set. Then it just disappeared from the face of the earth. But I'm glad that you're playing it. Again, I think because of how the game is moving, if you can get this out on turn 5, you're golden. Depending on who we're playing with, of course. I think there's applicability in several different strategies. Like if you're milling yourself for value, or you're playing a deck that doesn't really recur things, so it doesn't really care. If you're able to somehow double the end step trigger, I'm not sure if that's possible, but that would be cool. Let's see what happens. If you could make like if you played mechanized production on this thing, that would be really interesting. Because everything then becomes Ward 4 and then Ward 6 and then it just stacks.
Yeah, let me write that down. Let me write that down. That's a combo welcome. I need to put.
Yeah. Because then you have 10 copies of it. You win the game. Everything has Ward 10. If they have a massive board wipe, you just play a memory lapse and then you just sit there for another turn or two. But that's just where my brain goes. I always go to okay, how do I just snap this thing in half? I think it's
our dirt bag. It's so
I think it's fun. I think it's definitely worth. It's definitely worth trying at least once or twice, especially if you're playing like a weird deck that like a 5-color deck that needs some sort of cheating things out, or even like playing Xenagos with this would be kind of funny too. Like putting it in Xenagos, making it a creature. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just getting ahead of myself.
And it's 40 cents. Like that's pretty spicy. Like it's pretty. Like if you want to go try it out, it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. It's just going to go. Your local store may not have it because no one's playing this, but that's not because it's priced out of your price range. You can. So that's pretty. I think that's this slaps. I'm in.
You can get the full bordered version for 37 American cents. So
well, in Canadian pesos, that's going to be literally like more than 3 cups of coffee, I'm sure. So anyway, it's fine.
30 cents in the US. I'll buy it for you and I'll just send it to you. How about that? You can save some money.
How about that, friend? I'm down.
Give me a list. Give me a list. You too, winner. Give me a list of cards you need. I can find them for you. In the great old American states.
TCG Direct, baby.
Yes, sir.
All right, what's the last one you brought tonight? There's one more card on this list that I like.
Sure. If you want to do that, sure. This is Thaumatic Compass. This is another artifact. It's a 2 generic artifact. For 3 and tap it, you can search your library for a basic land card and reveal it and put it into your hand and then shuffle your library. And at the beginning of your end step, if you control 7 or more lands, you transform Thaumatic Compass into the Spires of Araska, which taps for a single colorless, or you can tap it to untap target attacking creature an opponent controls and remove it from combat.
Sure.
Yep. So it's Amazivist on the back.
I'm in. I'm in.
Yeah. I run this
in... Fog meta.
Yeah, I run this in a lot of different styles of decks. I run it in decks that sort of just need that extra like couple of turns to get going. So they hit 7 lands and suddenly that was all the ramping they did, and they don't have any blockers, and I'm getting hit by 8/8 that someone else has dropped on turn 5 or 6 or something like that. I also have it in decks that just hit 7 lands consistently. So like my Simic piles often need this as like another Maze of Ith. I don't own a Maze of Ith. So I just run this instead because it does the same thing and taps for mana. I don't often use the actual tap ability to get lands. I find that is something that's like a big sink. And if I'm doing that, I'm a little bit behind in the game, but it's there just in case. I have it in some of my Boros piles or things like that where I kind of can't gain access to lands as well as a green deck can. So sometimes it's just there and it gets me to be on par, or like I've won a couple of games since I've hit a land drop off of this. So like I think it's just a neat little card.
I'll go first this time.
You look dubious. You look dubious with this one.
So, all right, thematic compass. I would replace this with like a treasure map 9 times out of 10, but that's just me and the way that I look at 2 mana rocks. I look at this as a like five costing 2 mana rock. But then when it flips, of course, it's going to create value in the later game. At that point, I'd want to try to win the game instead of stall my opponent because they might be able to outvalue me with attackers. But that's just me. That's the way I operate. I'm not going to be pessimistic, though, because I definitely think there's applicability for shuffling your deck in color combinations that need that sort of deck movement. And I also think cards that need the ramp that don't have access, or you're not going to play a $50 card, obviously, because the 3 of us here, majority of us play $5 or less cards, 9 times out of 10. So I would say I wouldn't play it just because I don't think, and I feel like I've just rejected like every card this round, and I apologize, but
that's okay.
I'm just being brutally honest about the rate of how fast you can get the lands out. Like I've cut this for the Collector's Vault. I think that's better because Collector's Vault is 2 mana, draw a card, discard a card, make a treasure. So you're moving your deck and you're ramping. So you only really pay 1 mana to draw a card, discard a card, and make a treasure. I know Bruce doesn't like the card, but it's fine. I forgive you. Go ahead, Bruce.
Well, I mean, it's not that I don't like the card. The Collector's Vault is fine. I think this is sort of exactly what I want to do. Again, big green stompy things and monsters, and it's what I want to do. And so the fact of the matter is, this is right up my alley, and I'm a big fan. So I think I agree with Winter when he says that you don't really want to be using it to go find lands, but if you can hit 7 lands because you ramp real hard, and you can flip this incidentally, I'm in. I'm in. So this is awesome. Pete can get lost. Pete doesn't know what he's talking about. And the guys north of the border win this one. So go for the good guys.
I would say to Pete's point that this card is not a card I'm putting in and saying it is ramp. Like when I put this card in, I'm putting it in as like
explicitly. Explicitly for the flip, which makes sense. I mean, I'm not arguing the fact that it's applicable. I'm skeptical. That's
better stuff. Yeah.
Oh no, I wouldn't say that even. I would just say there's things I would play and things I would not play.
Gotcha.
But that's just me being, narrow-minded, I guess. I need to
different players have different styles. That's all we need to say.
Very true. And speaking of styles, let's get to the what I really want to talk about, the meat and the potatoes of it, which is your philosophy, and also just, I guess first, how did you get into the game? How long have you played the game for, and what were some defining moments of your sort of growth as a player the last few years, or since you got into it? And then what are you looking forward to these next few months with the game, and just what is your overall sort of take on Commander as a format now?
Okay, so lots of stuff. I guess to start off with, I began Magic through my younger brother, who started playing with his friends, and I got into it because he was like, I have this cool new game, let's try it out. And he was like, I have a zombie deck, and he passed me a pile of cards, and he said, make something out of it. We had barely any idea what the rules were. There's a 3-drop from one of the Egyptians that I can't remember. I'm on Ket. It's like a 3-mana 5/5 zombie that like whenever an opponent casts a spell, it gets a -1/-1 counter, and whenever it hits someone.
Diagraph mob, right?
Diagraph mob I don't believe it's that one, but anyways, the card is like a 3-mana 5/5 that's really bad if you're in the right deck, and that card was destructive. I played too much value, and so it's been a long journey for me to come full circle and still be that value-oriented person that gets stomped by a big creature. But I started playing around the Amonkhet era sort of thing. That's sort of when and then a few sets after that, Magic Arena, I think, came out, and I started playing through that a little bit more. So I'm like fairly new to the game, but not like new. I guess my personal deck philosophy is just for the game is sort of just a deck should do its thing, and I don't need to win or lose. So
the card's Amit Eternal. It's a 5/5 for 3 with a flick 3. It does too many things. Sorry. I couldn't resist. So
no. Thank you for filling in that information. That's definitely something I've been working on, trying to like remember things, but that's not how my brain works. A lot of my classmates are also they find that as well, so they're my filling in information, and I just chat. But yeah, I just think a deck should do its thing, win or lose. I am not a person that plays, even though I've talked a lot about win rate tonight. I don't often. Those decks are like outliers. I do not win a lot of my games, but it's not the focus of what I'm trying to do in a game, nor do I think like really that's what Magic is about. I'm trying to, sit down, chat. Yeah. If people are playing crazy decks and they want to win the game, then I'm like, okay, as long as I draw, like I'm a draw my entire deck player. I am a Thoracle player, so I'm sorry to say, but I'm not a combo Thoracle player.
Okay.
I put Thoracle in my decks because people have told me I need to win somehow. So when my decks actually work well, I can at least put an end to the game. It's a mercy thing. God. But yeah. Because I'm a Simic player that will just be like, ooh, funny cards. Let's just keep drawing and drawing.
Me draw 35 cards in a turn, and me can't do anything with 35 cards, right? Is that sort of how it goes?
Yep. It's like draw your entire deck, and then I go like, okay, I couldn't do anything. I'll draw the last card in my deck, which is the 0 cards in my deck, and I'll lose the game. And that'll be me, and I'll be happy. But yeah, I don't know. That's sort of the thing at heart is I like seeing my deck do its thing, and I like seeing all of my deck do its thing, so I often like to draw the entire deck to see all of it.
So you're like the Thrasios player that's like lurking around?
I have not played Thrasios before. That is the thing it's just not. I'm not. Honestly. So I have the mini version of Thrasios. I guess that's Gretchen,
yeah.
But I don't run Gretchen. I have Zimone. So Dina. Zimone, not Zimone and Dina, it's just the 2-drop because it's my Simic modular deck. So I have 6 different 25 card piles that I then slot into a pre-made like collection 50 card deck, and so I swap them in and out. It's like I think it's 51 cards, and then 52 with the commander, and then there's 24 cards in each of the piles, and so I have 6 piles, and I roll dice to decide which ones I'm playing that day, and cool. So it just makes its own deck every single time. It's really cool. It's really fun. And most of it, it's all about like drawing cards, making land drops, things like that. I often run Howling Mines in my deck. I'm a big fan of Collective Voyage. Pretty much, I like other people having fun in the game, and I really want to just see people hit their land drops and draw enough cards so their decks do their thing, because I like it when people bring cool stuff to the table and get to show off. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I'm still stumped on this. Like, you have 6 parts of a deck that you can
Yeah,
interchange and still make functional a pot. Like, that's cool.
yeah.
I need to clearly I need to do this. This is the next evolution of
It's
deck building.
it's a really interesting way to build a deck. I'll post in the thing, and then if y'all want it later for whatever, I can put all the decks I talk about in the actual show notes or whatever if you want those, so that
So,
people can look at those.
so Pete, have you ever even contemplated having decks that'll, like, you can take bits and pieces apart and move them around, and like it's still a functional cohesive deck? Like,
I
this
would
is
get
like,
stressed out because I feel like I'd lose cards. You know what I mean?
I feel
I'd
like
lose like
my
cards I needed or something.
brain couldn't handle it. There's too many
I guess
options. I'm
if
like,
you have enough redundancy, then sure, why not?
I
Um,
guess. I mean, huh? This is
Mhm.
like a whole, like, new way of
yeah,
looking at building a deck. I'm like, so, like, on here I have lamented before that I feel like there's some of the things that happens in Commander right these days is that there's um seeming like a select number of, like, almost like automatic staples that everybody runs. And
right.
meaning every time you have a staple, like, oh, you have to play a Sol Ring, oh, you have to play Arcane Signet. I hate Arcane Signet, but if you have to run Arcane Signet, and then on and on and on, it means that all these cool flex slots that we want to run these cool cards in just get absorbed, and you never really get to have them for fun, janky cards.
Mhm.
But doing it this way, where you build all, like, essentially components of multiple decks that you can
Mhm.
then slot together, you have the flex slots and you can do fun stuff. And I think this is a sort of maybe addressing a need that I didn't even know I had.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's I believe, yeah, 37 lands, and then there's 14 cards that I've selected as these are always going to be in the deck. So they're things like a couple of like key removal pieces. I love Arcane Denial. So Arcane Denial's in there, Beast Within, that's probably one of those staples that's like in every single green deck sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um
But
uh
that's not that
there
problematic, right? In terms of a
no, yeah,
staple.
it's just good removal.
Yeah.
And then like I got Timeless Witness in here, a couple of other. It's mostly like the key portion of the removal for this deck is in here, and then I've left kind of like 3 or 4 flex slots in each of the 24 card piles,
Right.
that are sort of extra stuff. So I wasn't expecting to talk about this deck as much, but it's really interesting, so I'll go into it. So the 6 piles are Big Hand and Big Draw. So that one's just like all the cards like it when you draw stuff, or they make you have a big hand size. Block Me If You Can is like a bunch of evasive creatures that they're like sort of looter
Edric Spymaster,
Ilkor,
like Edric Spymaster Tress style stuff.
things like that. Yeah. I don't actually have Edric in here, but I should probably put him in here for that. Then there's excess mana. It's Simic. You're gonna have excess mana. So there's a lot of like big, like sort of like payoff things. There's Kefnet the Mindful. Draw a card, put a land you control back into your hand for 4 mana, which is crazy. Spectral Sailor draws you a card for 4 mana. This sort of portion is just for that. There's a landfall section, which is just generic green blue landfall. A large friend style that's sort of like all of these huge big creatures that like doubling mana and things like that. There's a Sphinx of the Second Sun in there. And then untap friends, a lot of effects that like untap. So there's Staff of Domination in there, a couple of other things. And that's all just like to help out Zimone sort of do some drops from there. But all of the decks all of the modules are made in a way that they all include a bit of another module in them, so that when you combine them all, there are still portions of each sort of semi one that they'll work with the other one. So, for instance, Untap Friends has Astral Dragon in it, which is like a it's like a 8
Yeah.
mana 4/4 flying that makes tokens of non-creature permanents, except for their 3/3 dragons. That's like a big creature, and so it goes but it's in the untap friends because often I make enough mana to do it, and I like to copy the untapping effects that I have in there, like Rings of Bright Hearth, or I have Spawning Grounds in here. It's like an 8 mana
Yep.
enchant, a land, create a 5/5. But I have a lot of like untapped permanent effects in there, so it often works out. So there's a lot of like intermingling of themes in here.
Cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, it
think
is a
that's
love
like,
project.
that's a super cool like way of doing it. Like, do
It's,
that for lots. Do that for lots of your color combinations, or do you just sort of is this Simic one sort of like a unique thing to you because you sort of
Simic
vibe with that?
right?
Yeah,
It's in that
So-
sense. It's like it's like Simic Transformers.
Yeah, this is so put them all together. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like sort of like power. That's like more like Power
Power
Rangers. I
Rangers.
feel
Yeah,
like
that's
like
probably a
the
better reference.
combination of the mech. But yeah, this is the only modular deck I have because it was a little bit of an undertaking to get it perfect and things like that. And
Nice.
I sort of
Cool.
like, and it does take this one. Honestly, I can build a deck in a day. It's not a great deck in a day, but this one took me like maybe 2 or 3 weeks of like mulling over. There were, at a point it was like 26 cards per pile. It's like it was like working with like which amount of the pile needs to be there, how many cards needs to be in each pile, and like what needs to be the staple stuff that sort of like holds the thing together. Because I have a Cyclonic Rift in here, but it's only in the excess mana pile because I found that I didn't want to see Cyclonic Rift every single game I played with this deck.
Yeah.
It's a great card, but just doesn't need to be seen there. Counter spells in that excess mana. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, this excess mana pile seems very toxic compared to the other ones. But but that's just Thrasios is actually in here. Yeah, this is a toxic pile. I should change around this pile, but
I disagree.
Yeah, but like
disagree.
but like making it so that certain piles, like this excess mana one, maybe that's the one I play with a higher level set of decks.
Yeah.
And so it sort of allows me to randomly choose, or it allows me to sort of pick and choose the ones that I want for that night. Because sometimes I want to play big creatures and small creatures together. Because there's a couple of themes that
I think it's a really neat way of conceptualizing a deck construction. That I mean, yes, you could like, if you wanted to, you could tailor each of the sort of modular parts for different power levels. So if you're playing guys with precons, you could pick 2 of the lower powered modules and totally be cool. And if you wanted to amp up a little bit, you play the Thrasios toxic pile of nonsense. And that's also like I think that's really an innovative way of coming at the problem of how do I make sure my deck tonight is not going to cause the table undue grief by being at a power level that doesn't match. So I think that's really quite innovative, and I know it wasn't really what you wanted to talk about, but it's like I think this is like super interesting way of approaching the problem. Pete, what do you think?
Yeah,
this is a practical way of approaching that problem because
for sure.
If you have 4 friends that do this a similar situation, then it's almost like you're all at the same level because your decks are tapered out, right? And like I know I've been in situations where it's the opposite problem as well, where your deck is just not at the level of the other 3 or the other 2. We've all been there with each other and also with other people we've played with. So I've definitely been in that situation too. So I think if we as a collective unit, and that's asking a lot, but if we as like an EDH community was like, wow, this actually could work, and you have like a few deck boxes of your like sideboard, but the sideboard is really the power level sort of structure of how intense the deck could go versus how like dialed back it could go. But that just comes with like, okay, out of 10 decks, what are 10 decks doing differently than my deck, right? So like every deck has a different level, and there's so many cards out there. That might be the other sort of problem, is that there's just so many ways that you could do this. And if you look at it like depending on what strategy you're playing, you could literally make piles where like it doesn't matter what pile you play, you're still going to be so consistent that like you're still going to crush people. In a sense,
yes, that's
the other sort of thing, I guess. But
I think it's definitely a problem for sure.
I like it though. I think it's possible to do this with multiple decks. Like you could have an aggro Voltron deck where like you have Voltron deck that tries to win by like turn 5, and then you have Voltron deck that plays like World Slayer or something crazy, like something that's like really expensive to equip, and
Mech Titan.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Mech Titan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you're making a Mech Titan and you're trying to like crush people with that, or what's a really bad equipment that's expensive? I don't know. How about like grappling hook, right? That's another example of an interesting sort of equipment, right? Or
Sword of Body and Mind.
Celestial Mantle, right? That's one of my favorite win cons in
Mhm.
a deck is when you double your life total. But
Mhm.
I think this is great.
Manticore.
Manticore, yeah, we love Manticore out here.
Manticore. 5-color bestow.
Hypnotic Siren, and then you just make that creature that's somebody else's creature your Voltron commander. You take their it's build a Voltron commander deck, right?
We see Singer the thing with like that old card from Fallen Empires that no one else knows but me and Fuji. So
Imagine this is off topic, but imagine you played a Voltron deck, but it was really just take someone else's big threat and then you suit it up with all the scary things, but you're not actually playing any creatures. Like that would be kind of funny.
I think you're a bad person when you do that because people get really annoyed when you play with their deck. As someone
What if
who
you
has
took like
tried to
their
do that,
Llanowar elves though, right? Like you just took their Llanowar elves, you made it like a 15/15 double strike trample lifelink, and you just killed somebody with it. That would be
you try
hilarious.
that and see what people think of you.
Take their Birds of Paradise, it's a
Yeah.
0/1 flyer, and you make it
I
now.
see. I'm of the mind that if someone took my bop and then bopped me, I'd I would be like, good game.
Yeah.
Into good game. I have just seen something new. My horizon has been expanded. Look forward to when I hit you back with it next time.
Yeah.
There we go. That's the approach. No, that's pretty. I have to say this Simic approach. I really like this. This is super cool. I am a fan.
And then you can apply it to the other kinds of guilds too. Like you can say,
Yeah,
like
for sure.
I'm a Golgari dude pretty much, like or a Rakdos dude when it comes to deck building. All my decks have some sort of chaotic element and some sort of graveyard element recursion in regards of like how I get
That's
things
about
back.
right.
I mean that's just how I run it. But I think applying that mentality to your deck building will just make you a better deck builder. Because you're not like pigeonholing yourself into like an archetype or a strategy. You're expanding your mind.
Pete.
Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
Revan Unleash. Revan Unleash cards. I think you can do it, buddy.
I probably could. You could do like Hate Flare. What's that other one?
There's like Hellhole Flare and there's like Exava, and you can play like Lactose Cackler, and you can play all these terrible cards. And then that would totally so you could nerf your Greven deck and then put all these bad creatures in it. And then if you wanted to play mean, you can put all the good stuff back in it. I think
it's fair.
This is the future of Greven. So Greven can come off the shelf of retirement, and you could like play it again.
I did play it today. I actually played it today. I unretired it because we only had like 35 minutes before our recording today.
Oh, so you just wanted to just destroy somebody. I understand.
I got mashed though. I was at 1 life. Someone had a Warstorm surge out, and I was just able to get there somehow. Whatever, it happens. Magic.
So we all know Pete now uses politicking from we talked about 2 weeks ago, and politicked his way to.
I didn't. I swung with my 6/5. Fabro chose not to block. I played ad nauseum.
Well, that's silly.
I went down to 1 and he died, and then Fuji couldn't kill me, so I played Greven because he killed Greven, and then I sacrificed an 8/4 to draw 8 cards and lose 4 life. I was at 1 life, so it was a 9/5, and I played Tainted Strike in response to blockers because he didn't have any blockers.
Excellent.
It's stupid, but
you're a terrible person.
He had 2 mana up. He had a blue mana up. I was like, this doesn't resolve, right? He goes, nah, it doesn't. And he said it does. And he had 2 green cards in his hand. And I'm like, wow.
Oh my goodness.
Excellent.
Anyway, all right.
Anyway,
that's pretty sweet.
Magic is great. Winner, thank you so much for coming on. I know our conversation kind of took a mind of its own. That's just usually what happens.
I am so glad to share any decks I have. We can talk about Rex Nebula some other time.
Indeed.
Just a tidbit.
And
give us a quick synopsis before we say goodbye.
The deck I was going to talk about was Captain Rex Nebula. It's a dice rolling deck. You turn non-land permanents into vehicles, and then Captain Rex crews them, and you can swing them and pretty much if you hit someone or deal any damage with those vehicles, they have a chance to crash. So you roll a dice, and depending on the dice roll, they might crash. That deck has a lot of weird. Yeah, it's got Axis of Mortality in it, Orbs of Warding. I have an Ugin's Nexus in there with no way to sack it except for crashing it. There's nice math land destruction. That's the Fall of Thuran. Gratuitous Violence is really funny because if you hit someone with gratuitous violence, it's just doubling itself, which is pretty funny, and it also doubles the effect of any damage creatures deal. So if you crash land something, it doubles the hit, and then it also doubles the potential damage that it deals when you sacrifice it. Oh, that's what it does. When you crash land something, it deals damage to any target equal to the CMC. So we can talk about that some other time. It's a crazy deck. I would recommend building
hilarious.
build Captain Rex Nebula. Super cool card. From the recent unset Infinity, I believe. Infinity. So it was just a weird commander that I haven't seen a lot of. And I thought this dude is just hilarious. So just something weird as well that isn't Simic.
It's Simic.
No,
what are you talking about?
It's very not Simic. Thanks for letting me throw that in at the end there.
The other thing too is when you play that deck, every time you played it with me, it's always just done hilarious things, and I always have to like I'm always flabbergasted. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Like you play a card, I'm like, I've never seen that card before, or like you play this card and it does this thing, and I'm like, did that just happen? Like it was one of those moments where you're just sitting there. And you're like,
I'm going through the list right now, and I'm like, I don't know what most of these things do. I'm like, what is this stuff? Anyway, it is fun.
Yeah, non-land permanent, so you can turn planeswalkers into vehicles to hit people with Ugin the Spirit Dragon. I've done that a couple of times. Pretty funny. Yeah.
Oh my god! And then it's funny. Luminous Broodmoth recurs it too, which I find hilarious.
Oh, that is so.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is super cool. Well, we'll have you on again to talk Rex Nebula in detail.
Yeah.
That needs some more in-depth exploration. This is that rather than a quick cursory once over. But this is super fun. So I would like to thank you very much, Winter, for coming on and joining us today, and I really enjoyed the conversation. Absolutely, Pete. What do you want to say?
I was going to say, Winter. What are you looking forward to before we sign off here?
True. Yes.
Oh, for Magic, I'm really open to a lot of things. Marvel's got me a little bit iffy, but that's kind of because I'm not a Marvel fan. Sorry to say, everybody in the comments.
No, you're good.
But I think, I don't know. I'm really happy to just be playing Magic with people. So I'm looking forward to just all the new cards. Murder at Karlov Manor looks amazing.
I agree.
I'm a big fan of Investigate, so I am not giving any spoilers. So it's looking really great, and I'm looking forward to buying some of those cards. So yeah.
Thanks for coming on and taking the time. I know all three of us are very busy currently with our lives, and I'm sure one day you're going to teach a bunch of kids how to use Rex Nebula properly. So best of luck.
I so hope to do that in my future career. And I just thank y'all for having me. It's been a blast chatting about funny cards I have and use. So yeah.
Alrighty.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Take care. Again, if you ever want to come back, let us know, and we are happy to have you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, audience. Thanks very much. Hope you enjoyed the show, and have fun wherever you next play Magic. Everybody, thanks very much. Have a good night. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.